Welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures Hunting Podcast from Brownfield Ag News. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Brent Barnett, and today on the show we're going to be talking about some pheasant hunting. Joining us now is Nick Martin, who's been on the program in the past, also known as the Iowa Bird Chaser on Instagram. Nick, how's it going today, man?
Great, Brent. How are you?
We're doing great. Like we said, we've had you on the show a couple times in years past. And Nick, your story kind of goes back several years here where you're trying to harvest a pheasant in every county in Iowa, kind of like we've said in the past, the Grassley 99 county tour. So, for anyone that maybe missed those interviews, just might introduce yourself to them again here and tell them a little bit about your hunting background.
Yeah, like you said, Brent, my name is Nick, and first and foremost, appreciate you having me back. It's always great to be on. And I've been a lifelong Iowan and pretty much have bird hunted since I can remember. And as you mentioned, since 2020, I've been kind of on a journey trying to shoot a pheasant in every county in Iowa. So we're currently at 39 of 99. So we're making our way there slowly but surely. We try to do about 10 counties a year. But that's kind of the mission at hand right now. And of course, we're doing all of that on public land throughout the state of Iowa. So no private land, no just walking, the side of a ditch on a gravel road. Nothing wrong with that. But actually getting out there to see what Iowa has to offer in all 99 counties. And it's been pretty fun so far.
Yeah, man, it's really cool. I really enjoy the story. What have you learned throughout this process? We're on the third season now, or 3 years in, I'm sorry, and just curious what you've learned along the way.
Yeah, what's crazy is we don't have a ton of public access in Iowa. We're not known for a bunch of public land hunting like some other states are, especially right around us. But what's interesting is, if you're willing to put yourself out there and put in a little work, there's a lot of great tools in this day and age in 2023 that there are actually a lot of opportunities yet out there to be had. And especially if you're willing to put in the work and, get a little off the beaten path, so to speak. There's definitely a lot of great opportunities for all sorts of hunting, fishing, and just wildlife outdoor opportunities in the state of Iowa. So that's been really fun to kind of just see what the state has to offer. Not traveling a ton across the state growing up, other than kind of Des Moines and the big cities. So getting into some of these smaller communities, seeing some of these state parks, county conservation grounds, it's been fun.
I assume there's a lot of planning that goes into it each season, not only just picking the counties, but finding out where you're going to go. So what do you look for, Nick? Is it a terrain feature or terrain type that really keys you in on a certain piece of public land?
Of course, with the pheasants, like many animals, there's a couple critical things that they need, and they need water, which is pretty easy for them to find. They can get that in a variety of ways, so they don't need to be by a big body of water. They can find water, in little creeks, pockets of water, pools, things like that, little ponds, do even when they're younger. So, water's key. If you have water nearby, that can help. Definitely, I love hunting next to corn, especially cut corn. I mean, it seems like those birds love corn. Of course, you'll see other variety of things in their crop, but corn, it seems like, 85% of the time they got a crop full of corn. So if you can hunt next to corn, especially cut corn that's mowed down, um, or been harvested, so to speak, your odds are higher. And then lastly, just good cover. And depending on the time of year, they're going to be using different cover. So that's always kind of changing depending on what the weather's like when we're hunting. But those are kind of the three key elements there.
I've been curious since you've been along this process, and I know you've been pheasant hunting your whole life and stuff, but just when you've really been out and about these since 2020, what have you seen as far as hunter numbers? Just thinking, just me and myself used to do pheasant hunting, and I've shared this with you before whenever I was younger, and I don't do it anymore. Some people I grew up with, even family members and friends that used to pheasant hunt, 15, 20 years ago, they don't pheasant hunt or quail hunt anymore. What have you seen as far as numbers when you're out there? Do you see other pressure, pheasant hunting pressure?
It varies by county, definitely. The more you get, Iowa's just known to have more bird numbers. The more west you get, as the east side of the state's a lot more agriculture. Fence row to fence row farming on the east side of the state. Definitely in the last few years, we've seen an uptick in hunting numbers. especially out of state hunters. It feels like, there's a lot of different information out there saying, oh, I was great. And there's a lot of birds out there, and there are a lot of great opportunities. Um, but it's still a little different than like South Dakota when we're talking about numbers, and the birds, in my opinion, act different. And I usually am fortunate enough to make a small trip to South Dakota almost every year. And so, kind of comparing their birds to our birds, they do act a little different. But it definitely seems like we've seen an uptick a little bit. And like I said, there's also been an uptick in marketing for whatever reason about bird hunting in Iowa.
What is it like to bird hunt in South Dakota? When I was a kid, I always wanted to do that. It's never happened up to this point, but what was that experience like for you?
So, actually the first time I went was 2019. So, when I say I've been fortunate enough to go a few different times, that's not like my whole life. That's pretty new. And so that was kind of partly what inspired this 99 county thing is my dad had always wanted to go to South Dakota. So he had a puppy in 2019 or a younger dog. I said, let's go out to South Dakota. And I think I had a puppy at the time and his dog was like 2 years old. So I said, hey, let's take our dogs on South Dakota. Let's go on a road trip. We've always been hunting around Iowa. And needless to say, we went out there and hunted for 5 days straight, hunted really hard, moved a good number of birds. It was pretty late season, middle of December. But we each got like one pheasant in 5 days. And I came home, and that's kind of really when it all began as far as me like becoming a student of habitat and figuring out exactly what these pheasants wanted. Because even though I was a lifelong pheasant hunter, we always had places around Tama that we'd go and we knew where the birds were. And, no discredit to dad, but there was never really conversation or talk of like, this is why we're hunting these places. This is the habitat. Like dad found them years ago and we grew up and he'd take us there and we'd shoot pheasants. So, I mean, we kind of put the pieces together, like obviously water, corn, habitat. We put all that together. But when I went to South Dakota, they had things like shelter belts of pine trees and stuff like that, which we're seeing more and more in Iowa. The DNR, local county conservation, and each county are doing a great job on developing these pieces of habitat. But that was one thing that I came home and was just like, oh my gosh, um, especially hunting public land, it's very different than hunting like some drainage draws on a farmer's ground and you go out and you shoot some birds. And that was a lot of what we were doing growing up. Um, and so it's been it's been interesting to kind of see the difference between the two. Um, in South Dakota is a blast. If you have a chance, definitely get out there, but you definitely got to put in the work. It's not just, oh, there's a ton of birds out there and you go get them.
Back to your 99 county tour here this year. Maybe fill the listeners in on how the season's been going up to this point and some of the counties you've been able to knock off your list.
Yeah, we've had a really good season so far. We're kind of in a couple weeks slump, but you know what? We've gotten 10 counties this season so far, and 10 is our goal every season. Obviously, we're still hunting. We're trying to get more, some bonus birds, so to speak, that I call them. I'd really like to get at least one more before the season's over. That'd put me at 40, and that'd kind of help me catch up for my first year that I just got nine, to put me on that 10-year track record. So we're getting close there. But this year, since the hatch numbers were up, we had a really good or light winter and a really good spring as far as the hatch goes. It was conducive for pheasants. I was able to basically take out that northeast corner of the state, which I was really worried about. Al-McKee County, um, Chickasaw County, kind of up in that corner. I think Howard's up there as well. And so that was really nice. I went up there for a couple days and got 4 counties in 2 days, which I never would have dreamed of. I went up there to hunt for 2 days, trying to get one bird each day, or one county each day. So if I came home from that trip with 2 birds, that would have been great. And ended up getting two birds each day, which was incredible. So when I get a bird in a county, I mean, I literally after I shoot the bird, I call the dogs over to me and we head straight to the truck and we're heading to that next county because time is of the essence trying to do this while I'm relatively young and before the dogs get too old. That's kind of how we operate. So even after we get a county done, we don't just keep trudging around out there. We get out of there as quick as we can.
What makes that northeastern corner so difficult? You mentioned Alameda County. Is it the steep terrain? Because I know you've got like the driftless area up in that neck of the woods, and there's some steep bluffs. Is that kind of the deal there?
Absolutely, and the big thing is it's just a lot of it's more what I would call like pasture. There's a lot of cattle up there. It's not as much agricultural because of what you described. I mean, there's pockets of ag up there, but there's just it's a lot of timber as well. And so the deer and turkey population up in that northeast corner of the state is just phenomenal. It's flourishing. You see guys up there deer hunting all the time. I mean, they almost beg you to come in, get some extra doe tags in some of those counties to just kind of help with population control. But as far as the pheasants and the grasslands and that kind of stuff goes, there's just not a lot of upland habitat. So what can make it more difficult is basically the limited selection of public land hunting places you have to hunt, doing it the way I'm trying to do it. Now, I drove by some phenomenal pieces up in that northeast corner of private ground, some nice set aside grasses, and I know those were probably holding birds, but we're doing this on public ground, and so that was kind of the unicorn, so to speak, was to try to get some birds up in that Timbury area, and we were able to get that done.
I want to hear some stories from this year. If you mind sharing one or two. Obviously, you've had some success so far. Do you have any good stories to pass along for this year?
You know, I think probably one of the funnest ones for me was just here recently when I had got a couple birds in one day. Is I had hunted all morning. Took me 3/4 of the day to get Allen McKee County done. Ended up talking to a couple people at a local little general store in this little tiny town, and I said, "Hey, you'll never guess what I'm doing up here in pheasant hunting." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're never gonna find a pheasant. Like, if you want to shoot a turkey and call it a pheasant, you can. That we'd let you shoot two turkeys and call it a pheasant. We'd love for you to do that because they're a problem." But anyways, I ended up leaving, and discouraged wasn't the right word, but you don't want to hear that when you've already been walking all morning, you haven't really been seeing anything, and then some guy and gal tell you, no, there's no pheasants around. And anyways, I went out that afternoon, and there's about one piece left in the county that I could hunt, and was pulling down the road. And there's like four trucks sitting next to it, and I'm like, oh my god, like I'm not even gonna be able to hunt it, and it's a little bit of a drive for me. So I pulled up, and they were loggers. They were working on private ground, so I was able to get into this piece. Went in there for a couple hours. On my way in, just a little side note. It's been a long time since I've touched an electric fence. This was a piece of walk-in access, so it's private ground. He had a horse out there, and I'm climbing this fence, and everything's fine. I get halfway over it, and freaking jolted myself. So I was like, "What is going on?" Then, of course, my gun was leaning on it. So when I went to grab my gun, I got zapped. Oh, it was kind of a mess for a hot minute. But anyways, learned my lesson there. So regardless, got that county. But what made it fun was I left, got in my car, had about a 45-minute drive, got over to I had the next county lined up, scouted, got out of my truck, let the two dogs out of the field. I saw some standing corn when I got, 20 yards in there. I'm just walking on a mowed path at the DNR mode, see some standing corn. I'm like, I'm going to take this mowed path and go hunt around that corn. Took literally about 5 steps and was like, you know what? This is kind of dumb. Why am I not walking this grass that's right next to me? It was just a 15-yard strip of grass that was mowed on each side. I said, there's no sense. I shouldn't at least walk this down on my way to the corn. So I took maybe 4 steps into that grass, and the dogs just, bombarded into the grass, starting to hunt, and wildly flushed a rooster. And I shot it. And so my GoPro was on for like 2 minutes and 18 seconds. I took a look at the time of the GoPro footage, and I was from like the time I was in the grass to when the gun came up, it was like an 8-second time period. So when I end up getting that YouTube video coming out, I'm thinking I might call that one the 8-second county. It was just crazy, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was just at a loss for words. I was just like, holy crap! And it flushed, shot it right over mowed grass, so there was no concern about losing it or anything like that. And we just walked back to the truck and actually got into the hotel a little bit early that night. So that was a fun one.
That's awesome. Congrats on that one. With pheasant season running right through deer season, Nick, what challenges are presented there when you try to find property? Do you bump into deer hunting pressure when you're out there, and how do you respond to that?
You hear a lot of people bring that up, and to be honest, that was something I guess I used to worry about a little bit. But for the most part, a lot of these uh, kind of like wildlife management areas, they can be swampy, where the kind of the swamp duck ponds kind of butt up to some nice grass. And I'm not seeing a lot of deer hunters around that stuff. I don't see a lot of deer hunters, and I don't know about you, Brent, but I know they're out there because I see them all the time pheasant hunting, and I think some deer hunters should maybe push these grass fields. But I don't know too many guys that go out and just push across a big grass field unless they know they're targeting something that's been bedding in there. A lot of times I feel like they're going through draws, timber draws, little draws of timber that may go through some grass fields. So as far as like avoiding places to hunt, if there is grass on maybe two sides and it has a thick draw of timber that goes through the middle, I may avoid that. I ran into people where they may show up and say, "Hey, do you care if we just walk through the timber real quick in a 20-minute deer drive and then you guys can have it for pheasant hunting?" And, it's public land. We got to share it. Or, you have the choice, I guess, to be a jerk or not. But usually we say go ahead. And it usually doesn't affect pheasant hunting. Now, I know there's a lot of people that don't like to go out, especially if they have a brown dog, things of that nature. Other people just put a vest on it. But I think just be smart about it and try not to hunt pieces that look real, for lack of better terms, deery. I know it's not a real word, but you know what I mean when it comes to that. Just be smart about it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's a good point. I'm glad you said that. As we wind down here, what do you have coming up? Any counties off the top of your head here the rest of the season?
So we're gonna head out west later this afternoon, and we're gonna be working towards that like Shelby County, Guthrie County, maybe around Ida. We'll just kind of see where the next few days takes us. Our season's kind of winding down here. I did injure my ankle a couple seasons ago, bird hunting, just pushing myself too much. So I have ankle surgery on the 27th of December. So my season will come to a close a little sooner than the rest. And then my dog actually tore its ACL, same season, same place, I think. I'm pretty sure I knew where it happened. And so we'll get surgery on her here in the off season as well. So we'll all be rehabbing here in the next few weeks, hopefully ready to go and get fired up for turkey hunting here come April, May.
Nick, thanks for coming back on. Wishing you and your dog both a speedy recovery. How can listeners follow along your journey on social media?
Yeah, the big place where usually we post everything is Instagram. Iowa Bird Chaser is the handle. Just put it Iowa Bird Chaser in the search bar. It'll come up. We're about the only ones out there that I'm aware of. And then YouTube, you can get on Iowa Bird Chaser YouTube. Getting a little behind on content there, but we'll be getting caught up, especially with some downtime here this off season. We'll be getting caught up on those county videos and get everybody kind of posted on where we're at and give you some good off season content.
Awesome. Hey, always good to talk to you. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, always pleasure to be on, Brent, and appreciate you having me back. Thank you.
Again, that's Nick Martin, the Iowa Bird Chaser, right here on Brownfield's Outdoor Adventures. I'm Brent Barnett with Brownfield. Thanks for watching this week.